Hey, it's your host, Mark Santiago, and I'm excited to introduce you to the next level of this podcast, Empowered AF 2.0. 2.0. In this next stage of Empowered AF, we're going to dive deeper into what it means to be an empowered man in his most advanced form. I'm talking healthy communication, healthy lifestyle, both physically and emotionally, and evolving into the man you've always wanted to be. So stick around and join me in this episode of Empowered AF 2.0. All right. I know we're doing all these Facebook lives and some of you guys are like, what the heck is going on with all these lives? Well, look, man, we're in a place of content because we need you guys to have more content about what's going on, not just with Empowered Man, but really in the world of men right now. You know, we're getting closer to the holidays, and I think this is where a lot of guys start coming out and asking for help. And so we want to provide as much of that as possible for free. You know, we know not a lot of guys can or are able to work with us. And so this is kind of our way of giving back. So I have the podcast. That's why we have the Facebook group. Take advantage of these free resources we've got. But when you're ready and you are in a place where you're like, you know what, it's time for me to do this work for real, then we want you to think about us. And we want to get on the call with you and discuss that. So today it's kind of a unique opportunity. I've got with me Matthew Todhunter, and Matthew is a guy that our company met about a year and something ago, year and change ago. And he was going through exactly what you're going through. And so through that, he became a client, and he's going to tell that story. This isn't, though, just about him becoming a client. This is also about kind of where he's at now, because we're now a year past, and why he's actually come to join the Empowered Man team, which we're excited to have him. And he's already started having conversation with some of you guys. So I wanted to introduce him to the community so you can see, like, hey, this is a real dude who has a real job. He's actually got a full-time job. He's like in his car right now in between his job and doing his next appointment. And he's here. So Matthew, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I'm really glad to have joined the Empowered Man team. Just this past year has been just such a wild ride and adventure.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of what Empowered Man is about, is like a lot of guys just get stuck in like the mundane work life, and they just kind of get, bored with life, and they don't have that adventure. And that's truly what your life is about, is having an adventure, fulfilling that purpose, fulfilling that vision, and everything like that. So I kind of want to go back and like talk where I came from and everything. About a year ago, my now ex-wife, I had found out she was having an affair, and I really knew that I needed to take accountability and ownership over my failures. Like, I couldn't, take ownership of her actions and what she did and everything, but what I could take ownership was over me. And so I started listening to the podcast. That's where I started. Like, just started listening to Empowered Man podcast. I go to sleep at night, listening to the podcast and taking notes and just writing stuff down. And like, it's kind of like this analogy of, you're in a valley and you're covered with mud and you can't see what's going on around you. And once you kind of like listen to the podcast, it's like your head comes up out of the mud, you wipe your eyes off, but you're still in the mud. Yeah. And so like you have two options, right? So you can either stay in the mud, or you can start working your way to get out of it. Yeah. But what I realized was I needed coaching. I needed the Empowered Man coaching specifically, because I could have probably like strong armed it, but it would have taken me years. Yeah. And I wanted to streamline that process. So that's why I ultimately, was like, I got to do something. So
Matt, real quick, before you get into the story of like why you did that, this is something that you said that I don't think a lot of guys, you probably just glossed over. You didn't even think about it. But when you said that you started listening to podcasts, and guys, pay attention to this, he was taking notes. He wasn't like, this was a free resource. Like, he didn't pay for it, but he valued himself, and he valued what he was doing with his time, his energy, and his focus. He took notes. And it's important, because when you take notes, what you're doing is you're saying, hey, I want to learn this. What, like, in you, because I'm sure you were listening to a lot of different things, but like, what made you decide to take notes? Like what was it that stuck out that said, I've got to learn this? Was there anything in particular, anything that reminds you of that?
I mean, just, you know, owning my owning my shit and owning like the things, the mistakes that I had made and everything. I knew that that was an internal thing. I knew that like I struggled with boundaries, struggled with financial boundaries, struggled with maintaining my own emotions and having control over those. And at times, like having vision, but losing sight of that vision and not pursuing, to the fullest extent. So I always remembered that, until you write something down, it's just kind of like a fantasy. But once you put it on paper, it becomes vision.
Hmm.
And that is ultimately what, you know, I'm reminded of this scripture, and it talks about write the vision down. And there's
Yeah.
power in that, whether you're religious or not. Like there's
Yeah.
power in writing down these things that are taught
But
through
why?
empowered man.
Why did you decide to do that then? Because like you said, you were living life, just kind of like doing your thing. You go to work, like what changed for you to go, hey, I need to like write this down. I need to like be serious. Like what was it about that time? Like, because obviously you weren't doing that before, right? Like this was like kind of new.
Right. Yeah.
So like what
I think
changed
it
for you
was
to where you're like,
like,
you know what, I gotta do this. I gotta write this down.
I think it was like the pain. And I had
Mm,
been in previous failed relationships. And at some point, you got to look inward and say, okay, what's wrong with me that's causing these failures? Like
yeah.
it can't be just, her fault in
But your
every
wife
single
cheated on
one.
you. Your wife cheated on you. What did you have to look at? She's the one who had the affair.
Right. But those are her actions
Yeah.
and those are on her. But ultimately, women cheat because they're not having their needs fulfilled. They're
Mm,
not having things um, from the relationship that they need. And ultimately, for me, it was I was not in control of my emotional self. So she was realizing that I was not a safe space for her to
mm,
come with deep shit.
yeah.
And that's ultimately what I needed to work on myself
So what I hear you
was
saying is it wasn't your fault that she cheated, but you were taking responsibility and ownership for how you showed up in the marriage.
100%, and not even just ownership, conviction, like true
Yeah.
conviction. I knew that to be the best, best version of myself, that was going to take work. It was going to take,
Yeah.
responsibility, accountability. And I was really just deeply convicted, like not on an external level of like, I'm going to go to the gym or I'm going to like start eating better. Like those things are all good, but they're external. Like this is
Right.
like deep inward stuff.
That's the scary shit. Most guys don't want to go there.
Yeah. I mean, it's
It's
not easy. It's painful,
yeah.
There's a lot of tears, but like one of your podcasts that really resonated with me was like, you got to get ROI on those tears. What's your return on investment in the pain that you're going through?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can either waste them and, do what a lot of guys do, bottle it up and say, I'm going to take my ball elsewhere. But like, that's another podcast that talks about,
Yeah.
that's what little kids do.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm going to take my ball elsewhere and go, I'm going to go sleep with some other woman. I'm going to go
Yeah.
do X, Y, and Z. And like at the end of the day, until you do that deep shadow work on your inner child self that maybe didn't have a father. I had a father, he was present, but he wasn't present emotionally. And that's better than a lot of guys that even don't even have a father to begin with. But the fact that he didn't, show up emotionally for me, I wanted to be a better man for myself and for
Yeah.
those around me, that I could show up in an empowered way and manage my emotions and to show other men that, hey, man, it's okay to show these emotions. You don't have to be defined by sadness, by anger, and that's it. You
Yeah.
know, and a lot of guys won't even show sadness. It's just straight anger.
Yeah. So fast forward because you were getting into this about like when you made that decision to invest in not just in Thrive, but in your own growth, right? And so I know you said you had talked to some other companies and you ended up not moving forward. Help me understand kind of like what made you decide to go all in with Empowered Man.
So yeah, I listened to another podcast from another another company and actually had a sales call with the guy, like a specialist call or whatnot. And it just kind of felt off because it was more focused on her and
Yeah.
like how to please her and how to, do all these things, X, Y, and Z. And by doing so, it's just going to like make her happy and things like that. There wasn't like this accountability and ownership. And so it just
Yeah.
kind of fell off and I didn't go with it. And so then once I started listening to the Power Man podcast, um, it really just made me focus inward and felt like that's what I truly needed to do. So like I was sitting in a parking lot at Walgreens and I had negative $300 in my bank account. I was door dashing to try to make a little extra cash. Had a quarter tank of gas. My DoorDash had just ended. I had $10 on my debit card for DoorDash, and I was like, "Man, I don't know what to do."
Yeah.
So then I listened to your podcast, and it was about you're you're a producer. Men make shit get done when you tap into that an internal producer
Yeah.
that a lot of guys are just consuming. And like as men, we're taught growing up, you got to provide, that's your job in life, is to provide. But like guys, there's so much more to you than just providing.
Yeah.
Like not only are you a provider financially, like you were called to be a provider emotionally and showing stability, like a solid oak tree. You were called to provide a safe environment for your family. You were called to show emotion and all those
Yeah.
things. So I was listening to that and that just really inspired me. Like you're a provider, there's more in you than what you realize.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, like I'm going to do it. And so I went ahead and scheduled the call. I left that Walgreens and went straight down to it's a like a finance company. I put my car up as collateral. I got enough money to go ahead and like cover my current expenses, but I also got enough money to pay for the Thrive program. Called up, had the
Wow.
call, got it all going.
Guys, I mean, I know you say it matter of factly now because like it already happened. It was a year ago and stuff, but like this dude had negative 300 in his bank account. And we talk to guys all the time that have thousands of dollars in their bank account, but they're too fucking scared to invest in themselves. And this dude's sitting outside of Walgreens having done DoorDash, negative 300 account, $10 in his debit card, and you go and you get a loan to make it happen. That speaks to so much more about your desire for transformation than anything. And we say this to guys all the time. It's like, look, like you could be the richest guy in the world. You could have millions of dollars. You can be like, Mark, I'll give you $1,000,000. And I'm like, great. But do you actually want to transform? Do you actually want to change? Or is this just another thing? And so we actually say no to guys, not because of money, but because of they're not ready to do the work. And you proved it with money that you were ready to do the work, meaning like you didn't have the resources, but you went out and did it. And this comes to, what we've been talking about, you and I personally, and what we really wanted to chat about today, which is the difference between a cost and an investment. So you
Yeah.
could have easily just seen this as a cost, and instead you saw it as an investment. Help me understand that. Like, what was your thinking around that?
Dude, I'll be honest, like for me it was like, I had been bankrupt in my past. And so I went through that. And it was like I didn't really learn anything though internally. And I thought, I'm worth it. You know what I mean? I am worth the investment because I believe that I have purpose. And, I wouldn't have necessarily come to that conclusion had I not listened to the podcast and everything. But I realized like I have purpose and like I know that my life has meaning. And like regardless of the things she was doing and the things I was going through and all that, like I would be willing to go bankrupt on myself because if I knew that if I invested in myself, that I would come out and I would make every bit of the money back
Yeah.
and more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like we're
And
asking for $1 million.
that's what's right. Like I'm
Yeah.
not a millionaire yet. Like
Yeah.
goals for sure.
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
I know it's going to happen because of that mindset.
Yep.
But like, I made that investment, and like as a result of it, like the caliber of men that I've maintained friendships with, like I've got a friend Jonathan, and dude has pushed me, after Thrive. And like all the guys, that I've met, the coaches and everything, like they pushed me and they hold me accountable and everything. And just making that investment myself, like I was able to come out a victor and not a victim when I could have easily fell into that victim mentality.
Yeah. And it's so interesting when you said that. You said, I'm making an investment into me. And you saw yourself as a worthy investment. Guys, do you see yourself as a worthy investment? I remember asking that the first time I was talking to this young guy 4 years ago, whatever it was, when we were first starting Empowered Man. And he was a newer client, or he was about to become a client. I was like, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like you're worth the investment? And he was like, he pondered. He's like, yeah, I am. It's like, cool, let's do this. And and then I've asked other guys, and they're like, you know what? I'm not really sure. And that's so fucking sad. It's so
Yeah.
sad to think that you don't think you're worth an investment. And what breaks my heart even more is the guy's like, well, if I do this, then I can't provide for my children, or I can't do this. And I'm like, bro, you are no good to your kids at 30% of your capacity. Meaning, like, you think you're giving your kids something. Why? Because you gave them a plate of food. Again, we're not here to take people's food off the table, and we want you to be able to provide for your children, the physical needs that they need and things like that. But at the end of the day, if you have the ability to invest in yourself and you're just afraid because of some unknown fear that hasn't presented itself but is a possibility, that means you're living in a future that doesn't even exist. And that fantasy or that fear is driving your decisions. And that, if fear is driving your decisions, how the fuck do you plan on becoming an empowered man? It won't happen. It just won't happen, because empowered men make empowered decisions. Right now, you're a disempowered man making disempowered decisions, afraid of what's going to happen. Afraid, oh, here's a favorite one. If my wife finds out, she'll file for divorce. Bro, if your wife finds out that you're working on yourself and that you've invested in a program to help you become a better man, and she divorces you because of it, I think your marriage was already fucked. Like, there was no
Yep.
coming back from that. If she's going to divorce you because you decided, hey, I'm going to invest in myself, I'm going to be a better communicator, I'm going to heal from all this bullshit, I'm going to be a leader. If she divorces you because of it, I hate to say it. No, actually, I don't hate to say it. You need to fucking hear it. Your divorce is happening. You are already fucked. Your wife doesn't want the best for you if she's not willing to let you invest in yourself. Then it comes back to the fears. Oh, is this a scam? Oh, this is just trying to get your money. Blah, 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 blah. Listen, until you fucking walked in my shoes, you got nothing to say. And until you walked in this man's shoes and what he's fucking telling you, because while he now works for us and works with us, this ain't some fucking cult where we like make you, brainwash you, and turn you into this man who now goes out and tries to hire other people for us, or goes to get other people, right? You came to us and you're like, dude, I want to be a part of what you're doing.
Yeah. And like the thing is like if your wife gets upset because you invested in yourself and she's willing to file for divorce, like fuck her.
Yeah.
You're more worth it than that.
Yeah.
And what you'll find is when you come out on the other side, and this has happened with me and my relationship. Like I met a woman who was focused on growth, and when I came and met her, like she saw my value not on the external things but on the internal things,
Yeah.
and she was willing to grow. And like that's the thing that I think a lot of guys struggle with is like they're so caught up in their ego. They're so caught
Yeah.
up in like, oh, I love her so much and all that. But it's like they're scared to put investment in their self because they're afraid she's going to leave them. And if that's true, then what does that say about her?
Yeah. 100.
And what does it say about you being scared to make the commitment and decision to invest in yourself? You're basically saying, I'm not worth it. And guys, like I'm telling you,
Yeah.
like if you're listening to the call right now, like you have purpose.
Yeah.
You may not have found it yet, but the fact that you woke up this morning, took another breath, is another day to be thankful for, and another day to realize you have purpose.
Yeah.
And it kind of
Yeah.
goes back to like I wrote this down this morning because it just kind of something I remembered was like, your now is tied to your next.
Mm,
What you do right now in this moment, what you decide to do with yourself and investing in yourself is tied to your next. If
yeah.
you waste the opportunity and you don't take it and seize that opportunity that you've been given, like it's a waste. It's gone. Like your next is probably going to suck. But like if you take what your now is currently, right now, and make a decision to work on yourself, to invest in yourself, to grow, because the growth never stops, but to
Yeah.
change that mindset that you're going to become an empowered man, that you're going to take back control of your life, your next is going to be really fucking awesome.
Yeah. And man, again, I have to just go back to this point you made earlier where it's like you're sitting in a parking lot with no money in the bank account. It would have been so easy for you to just like focus on the situation as it was. But you were so consumed with the idea of investing in yourself that you're willing to make it happen in such a way. Because at that point, it was kind of like you got nothing to lose. Like you'd already
Right.
lost what you thought you had. And there's so many guys that are sitting there right now and you're listening, you're watching, and you're like, yeah, but I don't have the resources. And it's like this man had a full-time job and was door dashing. I've talked to many guys like that, and they're like, I can't make it happen, or I can't make it, I can't swing it. It's like money in this world is so fucking prevalent. It's not even funny. If you live in the United States of America, getting a hold of the type of investment we ask for, because again, we don't ask for $1 million, not $100,000, not even $10,000. We're not asking you for that level of money. But if you're not willing to go out and find it, it's you don't care. Like you just don't give a fuck. That's what it comes back to.
Right.
And it's one thing to say, hey, I want to do this, but I can't. I got to put it off because of X, Y, and Z. And here's the, like legitimate reason, right? We have some guys that like literally they are so strapped and like, man, I can't get a loan. Like I've tried, like we try to get them a loan, we tried, but they're like, I'm gonna stay involved. I'm gonna keep listening to the podcast. Dude, I have mad respect for that. It's the guy who's like making excuses, like, well, I can't make it work because if I do this, then I won't be able to provide for my child's horse school, equestrian fucking shit, or I won't be able to get my kid to Disneyland this week. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's not your child's needs. That's your excuse. You're hiding behind your children. I don't think there's any more of a pussy of a man who hides behind his children. You're leaving your kids out to be shot by the fucking enemy of your indecision, of your insecurities. You're putting them in front of you as the shield and you're hiding behind them. That is some bullshit. And you do the same thing with your wife. You're like, oh, my wife won't let me do this. Here, she's my shield. I've even had guys' mothers call me and say, you took advantage of my son. Like, who the fuck are you? Like, what is this? This lady emailed us and said, you took advantage of my son. I'm like, he's a grown ass man. He's like 40. Who the fuck are you? Why does that happen? Because we're so scared as men. We're little boys trapped in these grown bodies with facial hair and hair on our nuts. But yet deep down, we're these insecure little boys. And it's time to fucking grow up. And if you don't want to grow up, stop fucking listening to my podcast. Stop showing up in my group and bitching and complaining about your wife and all this other hitting the she button shit. Just get away. Because we're here to help men who've decided they want to own their shit. And whether you invest in our program or not, I don't care. Go fucking do the 5-day challenge. Listen to my podcast. Apply the things. Like this guy, he didn't just right away become a client. He took his time. He invested in the knowledge. He took notes. Like that was free. That's why we do this. Do something with it. And then when you come to this place and you go, there might be something here. Maybe I ought to consider working on myself with this group because of the results they get and the incredible amount of testimonies and 700 plus men, 3,000 over 3,000 clients. Like we've done a lot of fucking work in a short period of time. And with the results that are just like this, where it's a regular dude. Like that's what I love about Matthew's story. It's a regular dude who has a regular fucking job. He's not some millionaire that made this shit happen. He's a guy, and he's even had financial troubles, right? But you saw this as an investment. Real quick, give us like where you're at now with like you have a new relationship, just so some guys know, like, hey, the hell of divorce is not the be all end all. Tell us about Amanda.
Yeah. So, like, kind of what I alluded to earlier, she has a growth mindset.
Yeah.
She's, a good mother, has healthy parenting, and shows respect. And like, man, that's what guys want. Like, you want the respect. But if you
Yeah.
don't do like the internal work, like, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be a disrespected little boy,
Yeah.
and you're going to be treated like one, like another little boy. And
Yeah.
like, the respect that Amanda shows me currently, like, it just grows. It's like compounding effect.
Yeah.
And like, she'll even push me and push me to be, do more, and I'll push her to do more. And it's like, when you get through everything you're going through and you invest in yourself, like, sky's the limit, man.
Yeah.
And your relationships are going to be better quality. If it's with your wife, great. And she comes back and she's like, hey, like, I want to do this work too. Like, this is attractive.
Yeah.
And if she's the right woman and that happens, then, great. If not, you're going to attract success because you're
Yeah.
going to be successful yourself.
Yep.
And successful people attract other successful people. Like, they
Love it.
say top 3 friends you'll make within 80% of whatever they make
Yep.
financially.
Financially. Yep.
And so, like, just doing Thrive and putting myself around highly successful people has made me more successful, financially. But in relationships, being with a successful woman who is emotionally in control of everything, who is, manages the household and just
Yeah.
really shows like what a strong, virtuous woman should be.
Yeah.
Like, I attracted that,
Yeah.
and
Let me
that
ask
would
you
have
this.
never happened.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to go to is like, this kind of final question here is like, what do you think was the cost or what do you think the cost would have been had you not done the work? What would it have cost you?
Oh, dude, I would have went like full circle, like, would have kept repeating the same mistakes, probably gotten in another unhealthy relationship. Not even probably, would have. Um, would have, she would have seen my bluff of not being in control of my emotions. I would have got cheated on again, and it would have been like the same. The cycle would repeat, like, plain and simple. And I wouldn't be, walking out my purpose. I
Yeah.
would have no vision. Like, I would be a lost little kid and, you know, have no direction.
Yeah. So ultimately the investment and the return you made on that investment was greater than the cost of you not doing anything.
Dude, it was the best money I ever spent. And I don't say that because I work for Empowered Man. I don't say that because, I've always said that. And my friend Jonathan, he said that best money he ever spent, because the type of man that he became, the type of man that I became, like, after the fact, after we went and did the work, like, you can't put a price tag on that. Like, if you could take and go into the future and see your future self, and like, a lot of times we'll ask guys that, what does your future self look like? And the reason we ask that is because if you could go in a time machine and go in the future and see yourself after you made the decision to work on yourself and invest in yourself, you'd be like, hell, I'll pay whatever. Like, I'll go sell a kidney if I had to,
Yeah.
because it's worth it. Like, it's just worth the investment in yourself.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, the only person that can save you is you.
Mm.
And if you don't choose to make that decision yourself to save yourself, nobody else is coming for you.
Yeah. True.
I mean, I know that's like painful to hear for some people, but like, that's the truth serum,
Yeah.
is that the only person that can save you is you.
It's funny. There's that old story. I don't know if it's a preacher story, but where the guy's like stranded on an island and God sends like three different people to save him from the island. And then he ends up dying, and he goes to heaven. He's like, God, why didn't you save me? He's like, I did. I sent you three different boats and you didn't jump on any of them because you kept praying and asking me to save you. Well, that's you
Right.
guys right now. You're
Yeah.
God save me from this thing. And it's like, dude, I'm giving you an opportunity. It's right in front of you. You're just too scared. Stick your hand out. Let's see what happens. I mean, I think even you, right? Like whether you did my thing or you did that, let's say you did that other guy's program, right? I think just even making that investment would have returned something, right? Maybe,
Right.
and maybe it would have been, I don't know. Like we can't say hindsight's 2020. Maybe you would have loved it, maybe you would have hated it. I don't fucking know. But just
Right.
doing the thing, just investing in yourself, that to me is the biggest opening. Because here's where it gets weird, because a lot of guys think that when we're promoting Thrive, when we're promoting our products, when we're promoting our things, we're all about us. A lot of people think, oh, you're just in it for the money. Oh, you're just in it for this. Like, yeah, of course, we're a business. So yeah, there is an aspect of this that is for money. That's how I get paid, right? Like same with you. You go to a job for money. But here's the thing, is that we don't make the change happen. You do. What we do is
Right.
we create an environment. We've created tools. We've created coaching, and we support you through that, and you get to do with it what you want. So the ecosystem is there, and now it's your job to invest, not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually and physically and time and focus and energy into Thrive. And that's what you did, right? I think your return, and just like I've had, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of men go through it, not everyone gets the same return because not everyone puts in the same effort. You can give me the
Yeah.
same money, but doesn't mean you put in the same effort. And you're a guy that said, I'm not just investing the finances, I'm also investing my time, my energy, and my focus. I'm going to do these assignments. And if I fall behind, I'm going to make it work. And I'm going to do what I need to do to make it happen.
Yeah. Because if you don't put in the work whenever you're in Thrive, like you're going to look back and be like, well, that sucked. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you will look at the money. You will look
Yeah.
at it and be like, well, that was a waste.
Yeah.
But if you truly put in the work to make that transformation happen, you're going to look back and be like,
it was a waste.
That's all there
You
is
didn't
to
put
it.
in the effort. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, dude, I so appreciate your time. I know you got to get back to work and I've got to get back to work. This was good catching up, talking about these types of things. So here's what we do is if you guys are watching this live and you want to chat with Matt, just drop the word investment below, and you in the chat there. If you're not on, then we highly recommend you put in a application to speak with one of the advisors on the team. You can go to empoweredman.co/book to talk about Thrive and to talk about whether or not this is a fit for you and what we do and the work we do and how we do it. We want to see men get healed. We want to see men communicate. We want to see men lead again. We want to see men change legacy, change lives of their children, their future of their children. I mean, so many guys miss out on that fact, right? That you aren't just doing this for you. You're doing it for your kids, not so that your kids have a safer environment, but so that your kids actually don't repeat the same mistakes you did because you've learned this shit. So I'll leave you guys on that. I appreciate you. We'll see you on the other side. We're done. Hey, thanks again for joining us on this episode of Empowered AF 2.0. If you're new here, thanks for checking out this episode. And I encourage you to take a visit back to the first episodes in this podcast. Look, we have over 50 episodes on the foundations of how to be an empowered man. I'm talking about in your relationship with your wife, your kids, your work, your boss, whoever and whomever. And I highly suggest you take some time to listen and gain some insight and knowledge from those episodes. And hey, if you want to connect with me deeper, be sure to check out the Empowered Man group. That's empoweredman.co/group. empoweredman.co/group for latest information and to join our group of other men who are wanting to be empowered just like you. Until then, this is Mark signing off, Empowered AF 2.0.